When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish.
The podcast that's a perennium optimist.
Oh. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct.
You know what? Yeah.
I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
And we're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today,
we're going to talk about LGBT elders.
we're going to talk about old people. Oh, elders.
This is
Sorry.
the start of what is going to be Mike.
Kyle.
Respect.
Yeah.
RESPECT.
Find out what it
Respect
means to me by asking me.
Find out what it means to elderly
Great.
people. This is so bad
This is
so
great.
far.
Cut all of this. Yeah. But first. Yeah. Feedback and corrections?
No. Well, if you want to give feedback to us, you can do the survey.
Yeah. Do the survey.
We are doing a survey right now. It's going to help us see what you like, see what you want us to do differently about the show, about Patreon. Lots of questions in there. We really hope we've gotten a ton of responses. Super helpful. So yeah, go to gayishpodcast.com/survey. You have until January 31st to fill it out. So please do that and help the show.
Yes. Dick bags.
Friends, lovers, countrymen.
Lend me your rears. Okay, great. Next, there was like a minor correction.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was all about, though. So, this is going great.
this is going great.
It was about the first lesbian governor of Massachusetts was actually a long ass time ago because she was acting governor and therefore I don't know.
I guess I feel like it was a word was critical, like first lesbian governor sworn in or something. No, because you have to be. I don't know.
Yeah, but this is like she's for sure the first elected
Right.
lesbian governor of Massachusetts.
So still a first, not the first. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still exciting. Still great.
Great.
Go Governors.
Here's the news.
Should we redo all of that? I've never so much wanted to redo an opening.
That's fine. Nobody listens anyway.
Okay, sure.
Shut your mouth hole, it's time for your ear holes. News.
News the first.
Okay, great.
Okay, here's more shit that I'm going to fuck up. So prepare yourself. Gird your loins, everyone.
See corrections on next episode.
Yep. We have to talk about what's happening between the UK government and the Scottish government and all of their like gender certificate stuff.
Oh, okay.
And like just if you can't tell by my accent, y'all, I'm an American and I try to follow things and know things, but I don't always do a good job at that. So
You do better than most.
well, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so the gist here is that the Scottish government, which is Scotland is part of the United Kingdom, and what happens in Westminster in London is binding over people that live in Scotland because they're all one big happy country with the same monarchy and blah, blah, blah. But they also have their own legislature and they pass their own laws. Like it's sort of like there's some fucked up, like not exactly one-to-one things but about it, but like it's sort of like states in the United States have their own governments and pass laws and stuff. Scotland does the same thing. So here not too long ago, Scotland passed their gender recognition reform bill. It passed 86-39, and the parts of it that are sort of what's important here is that it allows trans people to obtain a gender recognition certificate, or GRC, without the need for a medical diagnosis. Lowers the age to 16.
Wow.
And also reduces the amount of time a person has to live in their gender before they're allowed to be legally recognized as that gender. Under British law, it's a whole year. I don't know what they've or 2 years. I don't know what they've reduced it to in Scotland, but apparently less than whatever the broader UK law is.
That's great. Whenever you talk about legislation about gender, that phrase makes me really nervous. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But now that has set up a fight because the Tory government, they're the shitbag face asshole party of what happens in the UK, and the new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak have indicated that they are going to go after a Section 35. A Section 35 means that they are basically trying to veto Scotland's law on the grounds that it's supposed to be UK law that supersedes it, and the way they're going to block it is by not sending it to the king to sign it. So they're blocking the royal assent. Royal assent is what is needed for legislation to actually become law and active. So it's a fucked up, like, we're not going to give this bill to the king so that it becomes law, which is almost never done.
Isn't it like a formality? I talked about this on the episode about the Queen when we talked about old white ladies and talked about the Queen, and it seemed like it was just a formality that, like...
Typically it is, but formality or not, it is a requirement, and the Tory government has indicated that they're going to block it.
That's shitty.
They're trying to say that it's a, like, in the United States, we would say a federal versus states' rights issue, and that the UK government has a vested interest in making sure that the gender policies of all of the members of the United Kingdom are compatible and on the same page. And there's an Equality Act that they passed way back in the day. When was that? The Equality Act, like 2010 or something, that already outlines this for UK wide. That's this: you have to have a medical diagnosis, you have to be 18, and you have to live as your gender for it's a long period of time. It's like a year or two before you can actually legally change your gender with this certificate. So what's super interesting to me about all of this is the Scottish people and the Scottish National Party, the SNP, have been chomping at the bit for years, especially after the Brexit bullshit, to just leave the United Kingdom. They're like, one foot out the door, fuck this, we want to be our own country again. The United Kingdom can suck a dick. We're going to be Scottish. Fucking deal with it.
Do genders the way we want to do genders.
And have our own money and be part of the European Union, hopefully, because they didn't want to leave. Anyway, so it's entirely possible that, like, radical trans ideology is going to result in Scotland asserting its independence.
Can you imagine? This
Right.
is the assassination of France Duke Art, whatever the fuck, that kicked off World War. Like, this is that for Scottish independence.
Yep, it might be.
What a weird confluence of events.
What a weird confluence of events. Yeah, so we're on the lookout to see if they're going to go after that Section 35 or not. And in the meantime, the Tory government has also announced that they are going to ban conversion therapy, which a lot of people, at least in my news circle, seem to think is just a distraction. Like, no, we don't hate LGBT people. We're going to give them this big win so that they're maybe less mad about this trans thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Let people deal with things like themselves and with their doctors. You know, the government doesn't have to tell us this stuff. They don't know. Your doctor, like you and your doctor know this. You or your therapist or whoever, like your rabbi, whoever. The government doesn't need. We don't need one more person deciding what your gender is for you or how to do your gender.
Yeah, right. Well, and the Tories are also repeating a lot of turfy bullshit about like it's for preserving women's spaces and blah blah blah. Really, very much just leaning on the bullshit idea that it's just a dude putting on a dress to go molest women, which that's just so fucked up.
Yeah,
it's not true. It's happened exactly 0 times. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. News the second. I love this. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, head cunt here in the United States these days, threw an anti-trans rally at the United States Capitol, and only 12 people showed up. So there was right-wing Christian anti-LGBTQ lobby group Moms for Liberty and members of the staunchly homophobic, transphobic, and queerphobic conservative think tank Heritage Foundation present. And then known J.K. Rowling fan Chris Elston showed up. Detransitioner Chloe Cole, which we've talked about a couple of times off and on, was there. A conspiracy theorist named James Lindsay, and so-called comedian. That's bitchy journalism right there.
That's really funny.
Alex Stein. The signs that they hold up are I don't want to repeat it, actually. I realize that sometimes, like, we talk about all this stuff so often, and just the awful shit that people say probably doesn't help to hear it over and over again.
Like, and we kind of get the point. Like, it doesn't add. You
named the bullshit. It was on a sign at that very pitiful rally. Anyway, so it's interesting that it was just such a colossal failure, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I think that we think that the fringes that are anti-LGBT in some way are like massive, and I don't think it's nice when they aren't, right? Like,
very vocal minority.
Yeah, if there were thousands of people there, then I'd be like, oh, fuck, that really sucks and it's awful. But 12, I don't know. I could run over them with my car. It's fine.
This is going to be evidence in court.
News the last.
Great.
Okay, great. I love this. This is my favorite news story of the week, I think. Dr. Matt Heinz, who is on the Pima County Board of Supervisors in Arizona, is a Democrat, and he is an out gay man. He represents District 2 on the county board. And about 2 hours into a meeting, a jacked dude wearing a Speedo rolls into the background and just like puts on a tank top and leaves. He's not that jacked, but he's very, very fit and super sexy, and wearing a Speedo. A lot younger than Dr. Matt here. Anyway, he predictably now, despite the fact that like there was no sex, there was no dong in that thing. Who was that boy in the background? And all of these allegations of that must have been a sex worker. That must be some, like, maybe a minor that he is corrupting and exploiting. Right-wing influencers have just, they're trolling him. They said that he was wearing women's underwear, which, so what if he was, first of all, but then second of all, no, it was just a Speedo. Like, fuck you, what's wrong with you? And one of the tweets from Stephanie Hamill, who apparently is like a local cunt, I don't know, said, quote, "Man in panties makes appearance in Arizona Democrats government work video."
As if they've ever seen, like, WWE where dudes wearing Speedos out and about. Like, yeah.
Apparently they're just friends. So Dr. Hines said he's 24. He's clearly an adult. We're good friends who travel well together. We are not dating. We are not boyfriends. We are not engaged. We are not married. He is not a sex worker. I work the night shift, and I voluntarily take the day before Thanksgiving. I work Thanksgiving night. I work Christmas Eve usually, Christmas Day, and the night of. And I typically work the 2 or 3 days leading up to the new year. Then I'll take 7 to 10 days time off. This is our thing. We travel together. He's a great guy, blah, blah, blah. He accidentally walked into the frame for like not even 3 seconds, was not naked, is clearly an adult, is not a sex worker. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just been a really strange reaction.
They really are just friends. Yeah. One of the few times that when you're talking about a gay dude that they're just friends, like they're just friends.
Yeah. Good for you for having hot friends too, Dr. Matt.
Hot friends, man. I like my friends to be slightly less attractive than me, so I feel very pretty.
Oh, well,
hi, Mike.
It's also, Dr. Matt is very daddy. So, this is like,
we need a shirt that says "Very Daddy."
Very daddy.
That's really funny.
That's the news.
That's the news. Well, speaking of people that are very daddy, that's our Patreon members. I want to thank our Patreon members who,
Should we give them all doctorates?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was trying to make the connection between something I said and no. Okay. Yeah. All the following are Dr. Patreon people. Thank you. This person signed up with their email address as their name, so I'm not just going to call them Jose, Dr. Jose. Not reading your full email address here. Dr. Benjamin Conroy. That's a solid name.
That's a solid name.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Conroy.
Yeah, they're on like Grey's Anatomy. Dr. William West.
Also,
what a name!
Excellent name.
And Dr. Greg Bown. Sorry, Greg. Dr. Greg.
Great.
Thank you so much. If you want to sign up for Patreon, you get episodes a day early. So like every Wednesday you get the episode. There's no ads. You get to support us. At the $5 level, you get bonus audio and you get to start voting to help us decide what episodes to do. So a lot of fun stuff. Go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast to see all the benefits.
You also get whatever you want.
whatever you want, what you really, really want. Another benefit is everyone at every level gets to join our Patreon happy hour.
Yes.
Once a quarter, we do a Patreon happy hour.
The first Wednesday of the second month of every quarter, because that totally makes sense. It isn't hard to figure out.
You have to if once you think through it, it makes
So, Wednesday, February the 1st at 6 p.m. Pacific time. All of our supporters at any level of financial support through Patreon will have access to a Zoom happy hour. So come get wasted.
Yeah, they're always a lot of fun. We hang out, we chat, we have shirtless dudes walking around in the background for several seconds. It's great.
Actually, that has happened sometimes.
Do you want to talk about elders?
Yeah, let's talk about elders. Okay, so the elephant in the walk-in closet,
sure, in the armoire,
is we lost an entire generation of gay men to AIDS. Right? Like there's just a very much wiped out segment of our population, and we're just now sort of starting to recover from that.
Yeah.
So that just automatically, anytime you talk about elders and gay people, you have to talk about the fact that like AIDS killed them all.
Right.
And it's really interesting because like then the elders that we do have are so valuable and precious, and I wish I knew more of them and talked to them more about this stuff.
Yeah, me too. And like we're running into a lot of firsts. We don't know how to deal with and manage the needs, the infrastructure, what we need to help support LGBT elders.
Yeah.
We're going to have a guest on. We're going to have Dr. Linda Marchesani on to talk more about it. So we have an expert.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a generation that we just, it's a new generation, and kind of we're doing some of these first and trying to figure it out as we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think where I was thinking is, I think and I surely have done this where I don't show elders that went through, especially LGBT elders, went through shit, not just AIDS, things have progressed
fighting for
with
rights and
acceptance and coming out and getting fired because you're outed or your name goes in the paper. Like they went through so much shit, and I have not always shown them the respect that deserves.
Yeah.
You could probably rewind this to somewhere earlier in this episode where we didn't show them the respect that they deserve. Like, I think we're often very shitty to our elders, and I'm trying to be better about that.
Yeah, well, and how much of that, though, is also us being shitty to anybody who's not a young, white, blonde, hairless twink.
Yeah, there are people...
Right? Like being old is like a crime in and of itself in large pockets of gay society. Just look at Grindr.
Oh yeah, you get to like 40 and you're dead. Like that's the
thanks,
like,
Kyle.
That's the there's a certain age where people are like, no, not above this. Like it sucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're very alive to me, Mike. You're vibrant, full of life, full of other people's life sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and the daddy thing is working. There are lots of 20-somethings are super down with the 40+ crowd.
That has worked definitely in a lot of people's favors.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Do you think about getting older and what that's going to be like?
I do all the time because I'm worried that like I'm single and I'm going to be alone forever and not have kids, and who's going to take care of me? And like I don't want to die alone and be lonely, and like that's just all of that's really sad to think about. So let's go to the bar.
Yeah. I think the exact same thing. I'm like very frustrated that I'm at this point in my life and I'm not dating someone or married. Like I think we often are delayed in, many of us who didn't get to come out or didn't come out earlier, like we're delayed in so many things, and that just pushes everything back. And like this is a common thing with LGBT elders, is like they don't have the same familial support structure because they may not have kids, or their families may have disowned them, or what have you. So I think about like when I'm looking back on my life, will I feel like I've achieved what I want to? And I'm very worried that I will look back and be just like disappointed in myself.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it'll probably happen. No, I'm kidding.
I can find a way to be disappointed in most anything I do. So it probably will, but that's like, man, we're really bringing it down. What an episode so far, Mike.
Right. Yeah. You know what? we can't win them all, Kyle.
Yeah. I think most of our episodes are pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with this one.
Usually we're W-Riz, but now we're going to be L-Riz.
This episode might be L-Riz.
Yeah.
We learned slang from...
But talk about being elders. I'm sure we hung out with my nephews this weekend who were here, and I'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. But like at 44, I'm sure that I am just ancient and decrepit to them.
Yeah, yeah.
All that's to say, it is kind of relative, right? I definitely have like my what counts as old has shifted a whole bunch.
For sure.
When I first came out at 29 and 30 years old, 40 was just like so fucking far gone over the hill in my like fucked up world.
Yeah.
No, it like that's just not true.
Yeah.
And so those people on Grindr that are like nobody over 40. Like, you bitch. You don't even know.
Yeah. I to my credit, I feel like I have, like, as I've gotten older, expanded who I'm interested in. Like, my age range is, like, everyone. I don't know. Like, or, like, body types have changed. Like, that's I don't know. You just have to get older and wiser and learn why, like, the things you might have done or said were shitty. So, I don't know. But I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Marchesani to learn more about the specific needs of LGBT elders. So,
yeah, absolutely. So we're going to take a break.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we will have Dr. Linda Marchesani with us to talk about
elders.
Elders.
Yeah.
So should we take a break?
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
Are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We are back. We are here with Linda Marchesani, she, her pronouns. She is on the GenPride Board of Directors, which we'll talk a little bit more about GenPride, and has a doctorate of education from the University of Massachusetts. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm really pleased to be here and glad to be talking about rainbow elders today.
Yeah.
Well, funny you mention. I was going to ask about the nomenclature, both labels you use and how to talk about. I heard you when we were talk about rainbow elders, and that was the first time I'd heard it. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. As you know, we have a very broad and inclusive community, and if we were to identify, and I'm not sure I'll get all the folks in there, but LGBTQIA+ to spirit. So we at GenPride, we talk about our experiences a lot. And so we've actually used the phrase rainbow elders so that we're not necessarily having to be specific every time.
Yeah.
But in a lot of our materials and things of that nature, I mean, we do represent all aspects of our community. But we do it in a way to identify ourselves as elders, and also to not have to say all those labels every time. So we refer to ourselves as rainbow elders, and we'll be doing that during this conversation.
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about we'll talk more about the word queer later, but the idea that like queer is to represent everybody, so does the rainbow. So I love it. I think rainbow elders is just a really fun way to do the same thing and include everyone under the whole diaspora. So it's fantastic.
To start us off, I thought you could just start to share a little bit about your experience in the LGBT community, and so we know kind of your frame of reference as we're having this conversation.
So I identify as a white cisgender lesbian. I am from the East Coast. I have been a lesbian all my life, and so my experiences are very much rooted in the lesbian experience and in the community in general. And so I would say, as several folks in my generation, I spent part of my own life closeted. I was a New York City public high school teacher. And then in my later 20s came out and have been, active in my community, the community being Western Massachusetts, where the university is located, where I went to school and then lived for several decades. I do have a commitment towards a lot of different social justice issues, and I have done work in that, education in that for most of my professional life. And so when I came to Seattle and looking for a way, which was in about 2017, looking for a way to connect with those things that I'm passionate about, that's when I found GenPride. and started out as one of their trainers, going into various social service agencies, various assisted living facilities, senior centers, to talk about the experiences of rainbow elders and ways that we're both continually discriminated against in both medical settings and senior settings, and what they can do to change to make it more welcoming and inclusive and to meet our needs.
I know that like there's so many problems in this country in particular with elder care and elder abuse, and I never really thought about it, that like you add the compounding effect of being under the rainbow, being a rainbow elder. I imagine those things sort of multiply against each other to create a lot of difficulties.
They do, and I think part of it really has to do in part with the historical context. So a lot of our elder population, myself and somewhat younger, somewhat older than me, but particularly folks older than I, they came of age at a time when being, lesbian, gay, bisexual, being queer was criminal. They were psychologically seen as, having mental illness, and they could lose their jobs. Lesbians could lose their children. They were ostracized in their families and religion. So it was a highly discriminatory and highly stigmatized environment. And so that, led to a lot of us forming families of choice, since we weren't always welcome out and welcome in our own families. And so that fear, all of those fears, a lot of folks lived a good part of their lives in the closet, hiding who they truly were. And so as folks have aged and have needed services, even, as we age, we can become very vulnerable. We have illness, we have aging, we need other people to help take care of us. And so both for folks that have always been in the closet and had that fear of discrimination, when you have the vulnerabilities of aging, that's even more intensified. And for some folks who have been out, for fear of being discriminated against because service providers and other folks in various settings still carry prejudices and discrimination, will go back in the closet. And all of it has a compounding negative effect on our health and well-being.
Talk to me a little bit more about the importance of the chosen family then. You used a phrase earlier that I didn't catch, mother of the heart?
My mother of the heart, who's going to be 100, is part of my chosen family. She was not my biological mother, but she is a woman who was very embracing and understanding of me as a lesbian, and really I received a lot of love and affirmation. Not that I didn't receive love from my own mom, but she was able to give it to me in a way that my mother could not.
Interesting. I just never heard that phrase before.
I think it's a little unique to me.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I like it, though.
Well, I do. I think actually in my friends, instead of, this is a little sidebar, but instead of like my stepchild or my child of the heart, we all have, you don't have to be a rainbow elder or a rainbow young person to have, family type relationships. And it's a way for me, it's a way to honor that relationship and how important it is in my life. And many of us have chosen family. They're our family. They're our family of the heart. They may not be family of the blood, but we are closer, many folks closer to them than we may be to our own biological families.
It reminds me a little bit of the way that drag queens will have drag families, right? Like there's the drag mom, and like so-and-so is my drag sister, and they have these really tight family-like structures that I think it's really cool.
Talking about some of the unique experiences of the Rainbow Elders, going through Stonewall, going through AIDS, like there are so many monumental moments that I only read about and learn about, and I'm curious if you can talk more about just, some of the most important things that you experienced.
So, again, my experiences are rooted in being a white cisgender lesbian, and that's very different from gay men in the 80s and 90s during the AIDS epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was kind of removed from, that wasn't part of my experience. I wasn't in a community where we were actively supporting gay men, and in that regard. I mean, I was, Stonewall happened. I was out. I was going to the clubs in New York at the time.
Wow.
So, I do remember that, and I do remember the changes that started happening. Mm. I think that some of the really, if I think about what are the really nodal points in our own historical evolution, Massachusetts was the first state to legalize gay marriage in 2004. Mm-hmm. And so being in Massachusetts at that time, and, I knew some of the couples that were part of the suit, and just friends just started getting married. And that, to me, the ability to be able to legally marry your partner, your life partner, is one of the most important things that have happened in our own evolution. Now, I know not everyone's a fan of marriage, but I think, even as you get older, the 1,500 rights and benefits that you get are important. And there's a way that, as soon as my wife and I got married, and, we were talking about, well, what's the term we're going to use, spouse? But we started, calling ourselves, she's my wife. Mm-hmm. And there's a way that, for myself, being able to refer to her as my wife, being out in the world, feeling no compunction about introducing, either of us introducing ourselves as our wives, just for me felt very liberating.
Yeah.
And it felt like we had arrived at a particular place and time that was very significant.
I mean, for the record, I'm very much pro-marriage. I do it all the time. I've gotten married twice. So currently single, but I have been married twice. But there was something really very cathartic and special and cool about calling him my husband. Yeah. Like it means something to do that and to say that and to call somebody that. So.
I also think that for the heterosexual population, it's a framework and a construct that they recognize.
Yeah.
And so having that shared construct, I think for folks can make us seem more connected and less other, can diminish some of the othering that happens with our experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is my registered domestic partner. Just it has an othering effect to it, right? Like, yeah, absolutely.
Man, the downside of when marriage passes, then my boyfriend at the time, everyone was asking us if we were going to get married. And we were like, we've been together a year. Like, no, I like it. But yeah. Then I'm curious next to hear a little bit more about, there have been some studies that have helped us understand Seattle, Rainbow Elders' experiences in Seattle and some of the needs. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about those.
Well, Dr. Karen Fredrickson-Golson, who's a professor at the University of Washington and the founder of the Golson Institute, she's been very prolific in her research and scholarship on aging in general and on LGBTQ aging in particular. And in 2011, she led the first longitudinal study, national study, on the experiences of middle and older Rainbow Elders. And she had 2,500 respondents in that. And then that was a follow-up with a Seattle-based study in 2018 that had over 500 folks. And in terms of who participated, 30% of the participants were over 70, 33% were people of color, 43% were women, and 18% were transgender or non-binary.
Oh, wow.
So some of the findings that came out of that are, at the time, 45% of us live alone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
75% are financially insecure.
Oh.
40% experience housing insecurity. 68% have been victimized or discriminated against 3 times or more. And most were not accessing senior or housing services. And so, what happened was, they took these findings and then created a series of recommendations that they put forth to the city, the county, I think the state as well. I wasn't here at the time, but the recommendations were to fund a senior center, to promote and engage our community to come together, because isolation, many of the things that we experience also are experienced in the general population, but can be exacerbated. So the isolation being one of them. So promote and engage our community, build affordable LGBTQIA plus senior housing, and build cultural knowledge. Help people understand our experiences, the challenges, the discrimination we face, and really help them identify things that they can and need to change so we have quality of life as we age. The result of that study was GenPride, Generations Aging in Pride, in 2016, was the senior center that was developed to respond to the research and to serve as a community need. So, and that's when GenPride was first established.
Where is the center?
Well, right now we're in 12th Avenue Arts.
Okay.
We will be, when we get to talk about, we will be the ground floor of Pride Place. Pride Place being the senior, the LGBTQ affirming, affordable senior housing, the first in Seattle. With GenPride, over 4,000 square feet, GenPride occupying the ground floor.
Cool.
Providing services not only to the tenants in the building, but to anyone in King County.
I hope this isn't too reductive of a question. And is there a lower limit to what age you would consider somebody being a rainbow elder?
I do believe 55 is kind of the place where we reach out, and it's kind of our marker age.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good to know.
There are a couple, like you said the word first for a couple of, like, for GenPride, for Pride Place. Like, I don't know if what your thoughts were, Mike. Like, to me, it just, if you would have named that, I would have said, oh, surely we have something like that. I would not have guessed that this is the first.
Well, there are a number of rainbow elder housing in the large cities, in Los Angeles, in New York. So
this one in Portland. We have a listener, Gary, who is in one in Portland. Yeah.
So it's there. The need is there. The response is there. It's largely in larger cities, but here we are, and it's the first for Seattle.
Is Seattle just behind the times?
Well, we're in the middle of the times.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better. All right.
So you said the center then at the new location that's this year that's going to open up?
The center has been open and offering programs. We offer services, we offer support, we offer social opportunities. We do a lot. There's a lot of most everything right now is still online. So we have a lot of exercise classes, yoga, strength and balance. We have health and wellness, cooking classes. We have arts classes. There was a whole writing lab, I think this was before COVID, where a book was published. We bring in legal aid, talk about end-of-life planning and things of that nature. We have a movie club. We cooking classes. We have peer support. There's a social worker on staff, and there's been caregiver support groups, peer support, especially during the pandemic, the isolation. So we are still doing a whole range of various events and programs. Just most of them are online. We did actually, though, this past fall, we had the first kind of coming out of COVID, in-person group, facilitated group, where just people got to talk about, what's it like to, re-enter society. So, but when we, in the fall, we will move into our permanent home, which will be this over 4,000 square foot community center It will have a congregate kitchen. We'll be able to serve meals. It will have a health center. It will have community gathering rooms. The offices of GenPride will be there. And it will be, as I said, it will be the anchor in this building.
That's exciting.
I'm interested. I don't know how to ask it other than to just ask. Would those services include like sexual health support? Because I think there's a stereotype out there that older people don't really have sex lives, and they are wrong.
Right. Right.
We know that they do, and
we haven't actually begun to sort of coalesce around what are the health needs that the clinic is going to offer and who's going to offer them. However, I think the topic of sexual health is very important because I do think there are a lot of stereotypes that as we age, we are no longer sexual, and so no need to bother, but that's just not true. So thank you for debunking that myth.
Yeah.
And hopefully, once we, sort of develop the array of services, that'll be something we offer.
Yeah. Well, I'm on record as saying I hope that my parents and grandparents like have sex clear into their 90s and beyond, because that means there's hope for me.
And I'm on record as saying that's a weird thing to say.
And I'm not going on the record.
I'm curious. We're talking about some of the services that are being considered or provided, and I had a friend when I talked about this episode and this construction that was going up say, wait, why do rainbow elders need a different kind of care than elders? I'm curious to hear what are the unique needs that may come about because you're a rainbow elder.
Well, let's first talk about the housing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that one of the really profound impacts of aging is often social isolation. And if you're someone, let's just take a hypothetical, if you're someone who maybe has had, a close circle of chosen family friends, and maybe they've passed away or maybe they've moved away, then, you can find yourself very isolated. And if you're in an environment, and I know, many of our seniors are in, if not necessarily hostile environments, not welcoming environments, not environments where they have connections with people who know and with whom they feel deeply connected. And so, and because of the housing insecurity, this housing that's going up it's informed by your income. So it addresses the needs of low-income rainbow elders, but it provides that potential sense of community and connection with other people that share your experience. There's, it's an important, it's not the only thing we need, but it's an important thing we need. And then, some of the, you brought up the sexual health needs. Whether it's general health, mental health, sexual health, not all practitioners are knowledgeable or sensitive to our needs. And so having practitioners that it increases the likelihood of our utilizing those services, because a good number of rainbow elders don't seek out the health services they need for that fear. I think about transgender elders. They're a population that very much discriminated against inside the medical profession. So by having folks that can focus on our needs and create safe, welcoming environments for us increases the likelihood that we will actually utilize health services and take care of our needs.
Part of that blows me away to think about, like, so much of the medical services for trans people narrative is focused on the transition process, but a lot of people get on hormones. And then you think about aging, and people's bodies naturally, their hormones change as they age. Are there endocrinologists that are smart enough and are tied into trans health enough to know how to adjust and follow that person as they age? Because I would imagine that their needs change, but I never really thought about it until right this second, that like maybe the needs of an 80-year-old trans woman are different than those of a 30-year-old trans woman when it comes to these things. And who does that? Who knows how to do that? Who's studied this and is versed in making these adjustments? I'm fascinated.
Yeah. The other side of this, here's a one way to think about this. I mean, the population of the LGBT population, the visible population, is it's a largely white city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and then there are community organizations, Entre Hermanos, Utopia, that are really geared towards not necessarily just elders, but to various racial and ethnic identities. And so when you think about especially being an elder, a rainbow elder, maybe an African American rainbow elder, or an Asian rainbow elder, one's affinity might be more to the senior centers that have a cultural connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how do we help and go in, how do we help folks find community both inside, how do we do a better job addressing the racism inside the white LGBTQ community?
Yeah.
But how do we help work with other communities so that folks can be, welcomed and supported inside? And I'm not just singling out the cultural communities. We've been all over Seattle. So any of the communities, any of the senior centers, the most important thing is that people can bring their full selves to wherever they are. So if they're going to a card game in one of the senior centers, they can talk about and their husband is not feeling well. And everybody in the card game is sharing about either their issues or the issues of their spouses. Well, everyone should be able to talk about what's on their mind and to get that mutual support, and doing that freely.
Mm-hmm.
And so having an environment where the centers take the lead in helping to create that environment, and we definitely work with them to think about ways that they can do that, so that we can bring our full, that's really the bottom line, is being able to be our full selves as we go through all the different stages of life. And all the different, because our needs change, the environment, the people, the providers, things of that nature change, so that everyone will be able to see us and value us and respect us, and we can bring our full selves to all of those experiences.
Yeah. Are you ready for us to ask a little bit about some of the stereotypes?
Well, as I said to you, I'm going to ask you about this. You're the ones with the stereotypes.
Yeah, that was a really great point. I'm asking you what's So
why don't you tell me, Kyle? What do you?
Yeah. Boy. Okay. One of the ones we mentioned is, I think a lot of people excuse homophobia, transphobia, because of age. They may say, "Oh, they're part of a different generation," or, that's just how they are, and kind of excuse some kind of bad behavior. And I'm curious your reaction to that.
Well, I have spent a lot of my professional life doing education around things like homophobia, heterosexism, racism, etc. And so it's grounded in the core belief that education and connection are very helpful no matter what stage of life. But you do need to meet people where they are. So I'm not someone that feels like that behavior should be excused, but finding a way in to connect with a person, try to help educate, set clear boundaries if things don't change. But so I do think making efforts in that way and meeting people where they are is important. But I don't think just excusing behavior is okay. But so I don't think it's about writing people off. I don't think it's necessarily about totally calling people out. But I think it's about finding a way to take a person in the context of their lives and trying to find a way in through human connection, education, but again, still having clear boundaries of what's okay and what's not for you personally.
Yeah. I think that connection is something that can get lost so often. And I think we see that connection, understanding of a person, an LGBT person, is what helps people then, move past homophobia, or like having a person in their life they're connected to can help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about connection, here we are, we're kind of a I don't know exactly how many generations in the room here.
At least 3.
But, I think one of my own experiences is the lack of connection within our community. And particularly, I wouldn't say this is a stereotype. I think it's just the experience of elders being kind of cut out of the community. I know my wife and I have gone down to the Frameline Film Festival in San Francisco many years. And increasingly, there's just not many films are being made about us. Mostly it's the younger folks, and it's those folks making the films. And so we become invisible to you. And, we don't, so not only are we not connected across generations, but we, in my opinion, we become very invisible. And I think part of GenPride is to bring that, and Pride Place is to bring us, to help us become more visible. And the strengths that we have, the contributions that we continue to make, and the connections, because we are each other's family in a certain kind of way. We are the generations, and y'all stand on the shoulders, as even do I, the folks that came before. And so how do we keep that in our history, in our culture, and in the kinds of communities we create?
I wonder about how, if a younger person wanted to intentionally make a connection, I wonder how to go about that, right? Because there's so many activities where at least gay men, I'll speak for gay men, being a gay man, you can meet people at the bar, you can join a sports league of some kind, you can meet people on Grindr or Scruff or one of those apps, and those are places where like gay men, rainbow gay men, are sort of they're invisible. Like you don't see them in those spaces to meet them and have a connection. How do we fix that? How do we connect?
One way. We have a very robust volunteer program. Sonia Frogen, who's the volunteer coordinator and the administrator, really has brought together, 50 plus volunteers to do things like, represent GenPride at festivals or events, working with Homage Senior AmeriCorps opportunities for volunteers to connection through companionship, peer support. I know Age Pride has legacy letters where younger folks work with older folks to help them write their stories.
Wow.
So I don't know exactly, I don't really have much to say about how to change the social scene. But for folks that are interested in building those cross-generational relationships, GenPride, volunteering with GenPride. I mean, we do have, I do want to take this opportunity to talk about our Pillars of Pride event, which is our annual fundraising event. The first one was last year. And it's celebrated close to May 16th, which is Honor Our LGBTQ Elders Day.
Okay.
And last year we connected with about 12 organizations and invited each one to nominate someone within their organization to be honored as an elder at our Pillars of Pride event. And in terms of actually seeing the vitality and the vibrancy of our community, I mean, that event really held it up and really made us visible. And the people that have contributed have created, particularly the Seattle community. So that's a great place to volunteer or to come as a participant. So those are just some, volunteering, connecting with some of our events, and, in the spaces that you're in, to just to think about, okay, who's not here?
Yeah.
And how to bring folks in.
Yeah.
I wanted to also ask about, especially in the past week or so, I've seen a lot of articles, discourse on in the news about the word queer. And there are people saying that they don't like the word queer. And some people, I think, blame it on age that, that's a newer word and it's being newly adopted to represent the community. So I'm curious how you feel about the word queer.
Well, queer is not a new word. It's actually a very old word that was really used to target us. It was one of the whether it was sissy, faggot, queer, it was used to torment us and target us. Then, like many words have been reclaimed by many different communities. There's a way that at this point in time it's being reclaimed by our community. My own personal opinion is I understand it not so much as an empowerment term, but as a shorthand, because we are so diverse within our community, LGBTQIA+ to spirit, that queer is like this big umbrella. But as a lesbian, I feel very invisible inside queer. So it's not like I have I don't have negative experiences myself, but I feel that as I said, as a lesbian, that it renders me and other lesbians invisible, because anybody what it does seem like now, anybody and everybody can identify as queer, and it just doesn't help us see our own unique experiences inside this big tent. And I think we're losing something if we don't know how to hold on to that. And, whether it's, and even whether it's lesbians of color, gay men of color, transgender folks, so that it kind of, and especially, it dilutes our experience is more the concern I have, rather than an aversion to the term myself.
Yeah. To those people that do have an aversion to the term itself, do you have any advice on how to approach conversations about the word queer with them? Like, where I'm going with this is I think that there's a lot of parts of the community that have just said it's going to be queer, everyone get over it, and they bulldoze over any sort of opposition or concerns about using it. And I don't want to do that either. But how do we have this conversation?
Well, I think I would say the first thing to do is to listen, just to find out what people's objections are. What is it? How does it land on them? And how do they feel about it? How do they think about it? What are the issues they have? Because I think before you can really converse, you really have to understand where someone is coming from. And I think for those folks that object, there's a whole host of reasons out there. So I would just say start by listening, asking questions and just listen, and, not even necessarily engage it, but just try to take in what people's different experiences are with that way of naming ourselves.
So another stereotype to sort of break down is that seniors vote more conservatively. That's certainly true nationwide, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. Does that hold true in the Rainbow Elder community? Are Rainbow Elders more conservative?
Well, more conservative than whom?
Let's just say the average American, or maybe the average queer person.
Oh yeah.
I actually, I don't really know how to get into that outside of my own experience.
Sure.
So, and the experience of most of the people in my world, which because of being marginalized and othered, and if we're talking just national politics, the only places where we were even remotely welcomed or tolerated was more on the democratic or progressive end of things.
Yeah.
And I would say, actually, that coming out and coming up in the 70s, we were way more political, way more left political than more of the younger folks today. So rather than being more conservative, I suspect, or I wonder if we're not more progressive than actually folks are today. Because the thing is, we had so much we had to fight against. We had so many barriers to break down. And again, we didn't find those welcoming spaces. We found them more in the progressive politics. So, it's in many ways, not in all ways, easier. So I actually would turn that back and say, I think perhaps we were out of necessity. When you think about ACT UP, you think about AIDS.
Yeah.
We were just on the progressive end of things because we were fighting for our lives.
Yeah. Literal lives. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's a great insight. Like my grandfather comes up pretty often on the show. He's 90 years old, lifelong Democrat, and is super down with gay rights, there's certain segments of the population that think a 90-year-old white guy, there's no way that he holds those kinds of views. And he absolutely does. So I think decoupling this idea of like where somebody sits on the political spectrum is necessarily tied to their age is important. So
the last question that I have then is, we've talked about some of the challenges and experiences of being a rainbow elder. What's the best part about being a rainbow elder?
I'm trying to think of what comes up, but certainly not just surviving, but thriving through the whole range of my own life experiences, and being able to look back and being able to know that, and this is just very personal, that I lived through history. I lived through things getting better for many of us, not all of us, but for many of us. And so that's something that I feel very proud about. I just feel proud about that. And I feel that's one of the joys of being a rainbow elder. And
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. That's really great.
I think...
Did we do it?
Yeah, we did something. We did stuff.
We did stuff. So should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Great. Let's take a break.
Break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We are going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest. But first, Dr. Linda Marchesani, where can people find out what you're up to, and what do you want them to look at or know?
Oh, well, we'd love for you folks to go to our website, GenPrideSeattle.org. And when you go to the website, you'll find out about all the programs and events that we're hosting. We have a whole part of the website that's devoted to Pride Place. You'll be able to see progress reports on Pride Place. You'll be able to see resource directory, so if you're interested in any resources. And, very important, you'll be able to donate. You'll either be able to donate to the campaign for Pride Place, because we are still in the midst of a capital campaign, or you'll be able to donate to our annual fundraiser for GenPride. We really need the community support. We depend on the community support, so we hope that you'll both go to the website, in order to become more familiar with us, but also to support us as well.
Are those donations tax deductible?
Yes.
Excellent.
Also on the GenPride site, genprideseattle.org/unmuted is the anthology of Rainbow Elders sharing their experience. So that's another thing you can check out. And
yes, this was a writing lab. I think it was about 2 years ago. That a number of participants went through with a writing and an editor, and their stories have been published in Unmuted.
So much to check out.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, really quick, a couple of programming notes. We have been confirmed. We will be at the Treefort Music Festival in Boise, Idaho. If you would like to come and support us and see us do a live show, that is at the end of March. It's looking like Friday, March 24th is going to be our appearance. We'll give you more details as we get them. But if you want to start making a plan to see us in Boise, do it.
Yeah,
we'll be there.
Do it. And there's another gay show, so you can see a couple different gay podcasts that are going on at the same time. So it's going to be a blast.
Absolutely. And then second of all, we said at the top of the show, but our Patreon happy hour, our first one of 2023, is coming up. That is Wednesday, February the 1st at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Everybody at every level of financial support is absolutely welcome to come kick it with Kyle and I for a couple hours.
Yeah, it's a blast.
It's a blast.
Everything's a blast. I guess everything's a blast.
Everything's
Sure.
wonderful. Our website is gayishpodcast.com.
You can find us on social media at Gayish Podcast.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails, is 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rates apply.
Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. You ready for our gayest and straightest?
Gayest and straightest.
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Okay,
go
great.
for it.
So the gayest thing about me this week is I go to the gym, and every few months or so, once a quarter, give or take, they do this thing called the in body, where it's like you stand on this scale with your bare feet and you hold the things, and then it like analyzes your body. And the gayest thing about me this week is just the like sweating bullets, freaking out about how awful my in-body results were last week. Just because between the holidays and all that travel I did, and then being on my deathbed for weeks, it's not good. And I'll get it turned around, but like.
There's nothing gayer than body image issues.
No, yeah, exactly. And then the straightest thing about me this week was the Seahawks game was playing in my living room all day yesterday. Now, granted, this because my brother and nephews were here, but yeah, it's just so much. Football has so many like crunching sounds and yelling. It's
whistles.
Yeah.
Well, my straightest is coming over to watch said Seahawks football game. When would I go see a Seahawks football game? I did not see it, but like watch it on TV, mostly to see your brother. But
you interacting with my nephews is the funniest shit I've seen.
I've never met them before.
Yeah.
They're very sweet. My gayest is we then played a game once the Seahawks lost, and there was a musical matching game. So they had matched the name of the musical to a song in the musical, and I won the musical round.
Yeah, you did. You kicked everyone's ass.
Yep.
Your musical theater knowledge for sure ranks high in the gayest.
Yep. What about you? What's your gayest and straightest?
Well, actually, my gayest and straightest are one and the same thing.
Excellent.
So when I was in high school, I was a majorette or a twirler with the band in New York City and had many parades down Fifth Avenue.
That's great.
In the late 80s, I joined the Freedom Trail Band of Boston as a twirler.
Okay.
And I was one of the few women twirlers in the country.
Wow.
And I would twirl at the Boston Pride. I again marched down Fifth Avenue in New York City, but this time as part of the Freedom Trail Band of Boston as a gay and lesbian band.
That's fantastic. Not a lot of lesbian twirlers in the universe.
No, not at that time. I don't know how it is now, but not at that time. So it's one and the same.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's really great. Did we do? I guess,
think that's it.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Marchesani, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And best of luck with the opening of the center. And
go donate.
Go donate, everybody.
Yes, thank you. It was really a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Also, thank you to
all of our rainbow elders.
All of our rainbow elders. Yeah. And we have quite a few that listen to the show, actually. And I just, express our gratitude and please keep reaching out and keeping us honest.
Yeah. Also, I want to thank our super gap bridgers: Andrew Bugby, Christopher M., John Crowley, Stephen Porcio, Stossel, Harry Shaw, Josh Copeland, Jonathan Montanus, Forrest Nail, Patrick Martin, James Barrows, Steve Douglas, Explosive Lasagna, Michael Covington, Just Jamie, Kevin Henderson, Thomas B. Dustin, A. Coleman, Chris Kajatorians, and Jerome York. We love you most of all.
We love you most of all. That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Kachatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Till next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you.
See you next week. Bye.